History is written by the victors, as the old saying goes. Ever since the dawn of human civilization, the strongest force has usually been the one that was able to survive to tell its tale. In ancient times, when Rome ruled the known Western world, all of history was written by the Romans, at least Western history. Little is known about the Celtic tribes that existed back then, or any of the Nordic peoples until they were the ones that gained control. And then they were the ones that wrote history. You can say the same thing about the early American settlers who were colonizing the United States. No longer was the history of that land being shared by the native peoples. Now it was being written by those who ruled. This has happened all throughout history and will continue to happen. But nowadays, people have started to catch wise to this sort of thing. And thanks to the internet and the free access to most information, it's not quite as easy to just rewrite history as it once was. Instead, we've resorted to doing something else. Now, the ones who rule deny history even existed. From the early Roman rulers to Hitler burning books to the modern day society that we have now, history has always been a source of control of the people. Who controls the past controls the future, and who controls the present controls the past. That's a quote from George Orwell. But in a world of capitalist realism, there is no past or future. There is only brands. Hi, my name is Aaron, this is my show Reeducation, and today we're going to talk a little bit about those brands, specifically Burger King and its latest tweet. I know that was a pretty intense intro for a video where I'm essentially talking about Burger King showing its ass and making a very sexist tweet on International Women's Day, but stay with me here because we're gonna go somewhere with this. With all of that being said, let's get into it. So without burying the lead here, let's talk exactly about what happened. So this morning, as I woke up and was shaking the sleep out of my eyes, I decided to check Twitter and was on for about 15 seconds when I seen this. A Burger King tweet telling women that their place is in the kitchen. They walked it back immediately because apparently, according to them, they were trying to promote their scholarship that would allow struggling women who work in the Burger King industry to be able to move up in the world and get a grant, I guess, to get further education in the culinary field. A seemingly noble cause, I would assume, but obviously they weren't doing it for that specific reason. They were doing this for the sake of outrage marketing. Now, I made a video about this not long ago where I talked about the Wendy's girl and how their Twitter account is used to basically create a whole bunch of outrage marketing, clicks and tweets by acting ridiculous. And this is basically a variation on the same sort of thing. For a small recap, this is something that brands typically do so they can increase engagement onto their property. Nike did this not long ago when they decided to hire Colin Kaepernick to take the knee in one of their commercials, and that garnered a whole bunch of outrage and controversy and a lot of clicks and a lot of profit. And you can see the same sort of thing happen with, say, the promotion of Captain Marvel and Brie Larson, where there was a whole bunch of outrage marketing around feminism to do with that movie. Essentially, in both situations, this ends up benefiting the brand that is marketing towards this demographic. But that's essentially the idea behind this whole campaign, and that's exactly what it is. It's a marketing campaign to get people to pay attention, give clicks, and make shocking YouTube videos like shit like this so they can promote more traffic to their channels. In fact, there's actually a lot of great videos about this. I just remembered H Bomber Guy made one that was called Woke Brands, and I think that he talked about basically the exact same thing as I'm talking about here. Brands tend to use all of this outrage marketing to get more attention to their company. And they can do it on both sides. They can go the Colin Kaepernick Nike route and try to use Black Lives Matter and people dying at the hands of police brutality as a marketing gimmick, or they could use right-wing talking points, even fascist ones, like a woman's place is in the kitchen. You know, essentially appealing to the demographic of people who believe that women aren't in fact people. Now, it wouldn't be surprising to any of you that when I seen this tweet by Burger King, that it had several likes on it by a bunch of reactionary figures, a couple of which being Nick Fuentes and the Quartering. Literally a Nazi and the Quartering, who I'm not exactly sure what even that is. You know, the Quartering. Jeremy, that 1.2 million subscriber neck-bearded fella that talks about tabletop games and how he really thinks it's important that children's cartoon characters, specifically animals like bunny rabbits, should have boobs. Personally, I agree with him on this. I think I would go further in that I believe all cartoon characters should have boobs. That includes Fred Flintstone and all of the Cars from the Cars movie. Now, I'm making fun of Jeremy here because he deserves it, and we need to have a couple of yucks at the expense of this complete gross buffoon. But at the end of the day, we're supposed to be taking this tweet from a burger company seriously. At least that's what they want. They want the people on the left or the liberals to lose their minds and talk about how Burger King is sexist. And then they want everybody on the right to say, hey, but they're just trying to say that a woman can choose to be in the kitchen if they so want to. But we're not going to do that here, because more importantly, this tweet was done on International Women's Day. Interestingly enough, International Women's Day happens to have a very radical history. And we're going to use this stupid bullshit outrage marketing campaign to talk a little bit about that. The first Women's Day was actually organized in 1909 in New York by none other than the Socialist Party of America. It turned out to be a little bit of a success, and in 1910, an International Socialist Women's Conference was organized, just preceding the Second International, if you're a communist, you probably know what that is, where they proposed to create an annual Women's Day so they could use that day to fight for women's rights, such as suffrage. And again, it was overwhelmingly successful. 1 year later, in 1911, over 1 million people demonstrated across Western Europe. In Vienna, women even carried banners honoring the martyrs of the Paris Commune. This International Women's Day, its roots are firmly, deeply embedded in the ideas of socialism and communism. They used that day to explicitly demand their right to vote and to have full equality across the board. And it went on like that for several years, until 1917, where in Petrograd, Russia, women in the textile industry had basically had enough of World War I. They decided to all band together and strike for bread and peace, and to end the slaughter that was happening in World War I. They were sick and tired of seeing their friends and family die in a pointless, meaningless war for money. So they all got together and they struck. And when they struck hard. Because it turns out that this textile strike was the catalyst that sparked the fire that turned into the 1917 February Revolution. It was apparently said by Leon Trotsky that International Women's Day inaugurated the February Revolution. And 7 days later, Tsar Nicholas abdicated his throne, and communism swept across Russia and the world, creating the Soviet Union. There's a reason why the capitalist businesses and the people who maintain power and control right now don't want you to know the truth and the history behind a lot of these events, a lot of these days that they're reappropriating right now to sell burgers or movie tickets. And this brings us back to the beginning of the video where I had that very ominous, very intense intro, because it turns out that the people that are around today that are in control, the rulers, the ones who are victorious, are the same ones who own those brands. Brands like Pepsi and Disney and Nestle and Restaurant Brands International, who happen to own Burger King, are the ones who own and control everything that you consume, not only in food and goods like Funko Pops, but also in the media you consume. Everything you view online and on TV and hear on the radio, a lot of those brands have a heavy influence on all of that. He who controls the past controls the future, and he who controls the present controls the past. And it just so happens that these multinational conglomerate corporations control the present. So when you hear about things like May Day or International Women's Day, you don't really know what it's all about. For many Americans, the biggest celebration at the beginning of May is May the 4th, which is about Star Wars. While May the 1st, May Day, was reappropriated to commemorate the Haymarket Affair, where workers lost their lives in the fight to maintain an 8-hour workday. Funny enough, the Haymarket Affair happened in America, and America, very specifically, does not celebrate International Workers' Day. They celebrate Labor Day, which is on a completely different day. Capitalism and the state have reappropriated these ideas, these holidays that commemorate the struggle of the workers, and they've turned them into marketing campaigns, ways for them to sell you more bullshit goods. And it just turns out that Burger King is doing the exact same thing with International Women's Day. It was very useful for the Romans and other civilizations over 2,000 years ago to use the embodiment, the ideal of a great man figure, a czar, a king, a ruler, a god, to basically control the will and mind of the people. But now that great man doesn't really need to exist. Now they can give you a clown in an orange jumpsuit, or whatever the fuck the Burger King mascot is, and you'll be fine with that. Because history doesn't need to exist anymore. It has always been this way, and it will forever be this way. Because it can be nothing else. We live at the end of history. At least, that's what they want us to think. And that's the way I look at it. So, if you do get a chance, please check out all the links in the description box below. Hit the little bell, because they ain't going to tell you when I release a new video. And make sure you're subscribed, because they're unsubscribing people every single day. Thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day.